The stars twinkled brightly in the vastness of space as the alien crew drifted through the endless void. The ship, a sleek silver craft with glimmering blue lights, cut through the darkness, its engines humming softly. The crew had been on a routine mission, exploring new worlds in search of resources and potential allies. But today, something unusual caught their attention. "Captain, you need to see this," said one of the crew members, a tall alien with glowing green eyes and sharp features. His voice was filled with excitement and curiosity. He had been scanning the area when something strange appeared on his radar. Captain Nia, a calm and focused leader, stepped up to the control panel. Her sharp eyes studied the readings. "It's not on any of the maps," she murmured, her voice low. "We've never encountered this planet before. It's not even listed in the galactic database." The crew exchanged puzzled looks. The galactic was vast, and they had explored many planets, but this one was different. It didn't exist on any known charts. Captain Nia made a quick decision. "Set course for that planet. Let's find out why it's not on the records." The ship glided smoothly through space, heading toward the mysterious planet. As they neared, the planet's surface appeared oddly peaceful: green forests, vast oceans, and mountains towering. Above the clouds, there was no sign of civilization, no buildings, no ships, nothing that would indicate life. It was just quiet. The crew landed in a clearing near a dense forest. The ship's landing gear touched the ground with a soft thud, and the engines powered down. The air outside was fresh and clean, but there was an eerie silence that surrounded them. Nia stepped out of the ship, her boots crunching softly on the dry earth. The rest of the crew followed, their footsteps light but hesitant. The atmosphere felt different, almost like something was watching them. "What is this place?" muttered one of the crew members, a young alien named Kiv. His voice trembled slightly as he looked around, unsure of what they were about to find. "We're about to find out," Nia replied, her tone steady. "Keep your eyes open." The crew ventured deeper into the forest. The trees were enormous, their thick trunks twisting and turning in strange shapes. The leaves above them rustled softly in the wind, creating a melody that sounded almost unnatural. As they walked, they came across strange markings etched into the bark of the trees, symbols they had never seen before. "Look at this," Kiv said, pointing to one of the markings. "These aren't like anything I've seen. They look human." Nia crouched beside the tree, examining the symbols carefully. She traced one of the marks with her fingers. It was smooth, almost like it had been carved recently, yet the trees around them seemed ancient. The strange symbols felt out of place, as if they didn't belong to the planet at all. "This planet doesn't feel right," Nia said, standing up. "Let's move forward." The crew continued their exploration, their senses alert to any signs of life. They soon came across an abandoned city. The buildings were tall and made of strange, unfamiliar materials. There were no signs of life, no movement. Everything was still. The city looked old, much older than anything they had ever seen. The streets were cracked, and dust had settled in every corner. The buildings were worn, as if they had been abandoned for centuries. But there was something odd about it all. It looked like the city had been left in a hurry. There were signs of damage, like something had torn through the structures, but no indication of what had caused it. "This place is a ghost town," Kiv whispered, his voice barely audible. "Who would build something like this and then just leave?" "I don't know," Nia replied, her gaze sweeping over the city. "But I'm starting to think we're not the first ones to come here." They carefully entered one of the buildings, its door creaking as it opened. The interior was dim, with the faint light from the planet's sun filtering through broken windows. Inside, the crew found signs of a once thriving community: furniture, books, and technologies scattered about. It was clear that the inhabitants had lived here, but there were no bodies, no signs of struggle. It was as if they had simply vanished. Kiv found something in the corner of the room, an old dusty terminal. He quickly activated it, and the screen flickered to life. Words in an ancient language appeared on the screen. The writing was worn and faded, but some of it was still legible. "What does it say?" Nia asked, peering over his shoulder. Kiv's fingers moved over the screen, translating the words. "It's a log, a message from the past." He read aloud, "We have discovered something powerful. It is not of our world. We must keep it hidden. The consequences of awakening it will be disastrous." Nia's heart skipped a beat. What is this something they're talking about? The crew exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear now that whatever had happened to this colony was not a simple abandonment. Something had gone wrong, but what could it be, and why had they hidden it? The air around them grew heavier, and a sudden chill ran down Nia's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone on this planet, that something was watching them from the shadows. What did they find here? Nia whispered to herself. And why was it hidden? As the crew continued to search the building, a loud noise echoed through the silent city, a distant rumble that made the ground beneath them tremble. The strange force that had once laid hidden on this planet was now waking up, and it was clear that the discovery they had made would change everything. They had uncovered a lost human colony, but what they didn't know was that what had been hidden on this planet should have stayed that way. The underground vault was a mystery in itself, buried deep beneath layers of earth, untouched for centuries. The alien crew had already discovered the strange symbols and the eerie remnants of an abandoned civilization, but this vault was something different. It was a structure of immense power and significance, the likes of which they had never seen before. Captain Nia stood in front of the vault's entrance, her heart racing. Something about it felt wrong, as if the very air around them had grown heavier, thicker with the weight of unspoken secrets. The walls were smooth, made from a material that shimmered faintly in the dim light of their flashlights. The symbols etched into the surface of the vault were identical to those they had seen on the trees earlier, only now they seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Are we sure about this? Kiv asked, his voice low and cautious as he eyed the vault. He was the youngest member of the crew, his green eyes wide with both curiosity and fear. This doesn't feel like something we should be messing with. Nia glanced back at him, her expression calm but determined. We've come this far, we can't turn back now. She reached out and placed her hand on the vault's surface. The moment her fingers made contact, a low hum reverberated through the air and the symbols on the vault glowed faintly. What's happening? Kiv whispered, taking a step back. Before Nia could respond, the ground beneath them rumbled, the vault trembled, and the symbols brightened, their light intensifying with every passing second. The team members exchanged worried glances, but Nia didn't move. She couldn't pull her hand away. It felt like the vault itself was calling to her, urging her to uncover its secrets. A sudden sound broke the stillness, the unmistakable click of ancient machinery coming to life. The door to the vault began to slide open, revealing a dark, hollow space beyond. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of long-forgotten things. It was as though they had just opened a door to the past, one that had been sealed for a reason. Let's go, Nia said, her voice steady. She motioned for the crew to follow, and they stepped into the vault, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. Inside, the vault was vast, far larger than any of them had anticipated. The space was filled with strange constructs that hummed softly, their purpose unclear. In the center of the room stood an imposing structure, something that looked like a control panel, but much more complex than anything the crew had ever seen. Its surface was covered in glowing symbols, like the ones on the vault's door. It seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythmic beat, as if alive. Nia moved closer to the control panel, her fingers brushing against the smooth surface. The symbols on the panel shifted and changed under her touch, revealing a set of words in a language that was both alien and familiar. It was the same script they had seen before, but now it made sense. It was a warning, a text. It's a warning, Nia muttered, her voice a whisper of realization. Whoever built this vault was trying to contain something. What is it? Kiv asked, stepping closer. I don't know, Nia replied, her brow furrowing as she examined the symbols further. But whatever it is, it's powerful and dangerous. Suddenly, the lights in the vault flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. A low, mechanical worry sound filled the air, growing louder as the ground beneath them began to shake. Nia instinctively reached for the control panel, her fingers trembling slightly. We need to get out of here now. But Nia couldn't move. The vault had begun to hum with energy, and her senses were overwhelmed. There was a strange force pulling at her, drawing her in deeper. The room seemed to close in around her, the walls shifting, warping in unnatural ways. She could feel it now. Something powerful, something ancient, was awakening. Kiv. Stay calm, she said, trying to steady her voice. We need to find out what this is. We can't leave until we understand it. Before Kiv could respond, the ground cracked beneath their feet. The floor split open, revealing a dark, bottomless pit. A cold gust of wind blew from the depths, carrying with it a strange, almost magnetic pull. Nia stumbled back, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of the vault's power growing stronger, pressing down on her with an intensity she had never experienced before. There's something down there, Kiv whispered, his voice barely audible. We have to leave this place. It's alive. Nia shook her head, unwilling to back down. No, we're so close. The vault began to tremble violently, the walls around them shaking as though the very structure was coming apart. The symbols on the control panel shifted again, revealing a final set of words, written in the same language as before. This time, however, the translation was clear. Do not awaken it. You will regret it. The force cannot be contained. The message sent, but chill through Nia's bones. It was a final warning, but it was too late. The vault had been opened, and the force that had been sealed away for centuries was now free. And whatever it was not happy to be disturbed. Get out, Kiv screamed, grabbing Nia by the arm and pulling her toward the exit. But as they turned to flee, a blinding light erupted from the pit in the center of the room. The air around them crackled with energy, and the entire vault seemed to collapse in on itself, imploding under the force of what had been unleashed. A powerful alien energy swirled around them, pulling them into the chaos. The crew ran, but the vault was no longer just a structure. It was alive, shifting and twisting, its walls bending as if to crush them. The symbols glowed brighter, each pulse of light sending shockwaves through the air. The force was waking up, and they were trapped in its grip. The chaos inside the vault escalated quickly. Nia's heart hammered in her chest as she stumbled over the uneven ground, trying to keep up with Kiv. His grip on her arm was firm, but his panic was unmistakable. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. But the air around them crackled with an energy they could not comprehend. As they reached the vault's exit, the ground beneath them split even wider, sending a shockwave through the structure. The walls groaned and moaned, shifting in ways that defied all logic. Behind them, a bright light, almost blinding, swelled like a living creature, pulsing in time with the thrumming power that surged through the chamber. We have to get back to the ship, Kiv shouted, his voice shaking with fear. Now, Nia nodded, her mind racing. They had been so focused on the vault that they hadn't realized how much time had passed. The vault was no longer just a building, it was a trap that was beginning to consume everything around them. She knew that they needed to leave before the entire place collapsed in on itself. But as they neared the exit, something stopped them. A low guttural growl echoed through the air, like a predator about to pounce. Nia froze, her blood running cold. She wasn't sure what it was, but she could feel its presence. The thing they had awakened was not alone. Do you hear that? Kiv whispered, his eyes wide with terror. Before Nia could respond, a shadow moved in the corner of her vision. A dark shape darted between the collapsing structures, its movements swift and unnatural. Something was hunting them, something that had been lying in wait. The sensation of being watched, of being followed, intensified, and it was clear they were not the only ones trapped inside the vault. Suddenly, the light from the pit surged forward, almost like it had a mind of its own. It enveloped Nia and Kiv, pulling them into its blinding radiance. The force was overwhelming, and for a moment Nia felt like she couldn't breathe. She was weightless, as though she were floating in a sea of pure energy. And then, without warning, she was slammed back onto the cold stone floor. She gasped for air, her body aching from the sudden impact. Her vision blurred, and she struggled to make sense of the scene around her. The vault was no longer just collapsing, it was breaking apart, crumbling into dust and stone. The very walls seemed to twist and bend as if they were alive, and the bright light from the pit flickered, casting strange, warped shadows across the room. And then, she saw it. A figure emerged from the light, stepping forward with eerie grace. It was tall and humanoid, but its features were unlike anything Nia had ever seen. The skin was pale and translucent, glowing faintly with the same energy that had torn through the vault. Its eyes were large and black, unblinking, and filled with an unnatural depth that seemed to reach into Nia's very soul. It was the force they had unleashed, but it wasn't alone. More shapes emerged from the light, each one more terrifying than the last. Creatures no, entities materialized from the radiance, their forms shifting and twisting in ways that defied comprehension. They were like nothing Nia had ever encountered. They seemed to be made of energy itself, their bodies crackling and pulsating with a power that could only be described as ancient. The air grew thick with tension, the ground shook beneath them, and the vault continued to collapse, its walls falling apart as though they were being consumed by the very power they had awakened. But these beings, these creatures, didn't seem affected by the destruction. They were the destruction. Get up, Nia. Kiv's voice broke through her daze. She glanced up to see him pulling at her arm, his face pale and filled with dread. We have to run now. But Nia couldn't move. She couldn't tear her eyes away from the creatures that surrounded them. The beings were not human, nor were they alien. They were something else, something beyond the scope of their understanding, and they were closing in. The light from the pit grew brighter, almost blinding, but the creatures remained untouched by its brilliance. They walked forward with purpose, their eyes fixed on Naya and Kiv, as if they had been waiting for them all. In that moment Nia realized the truth. This was no accident. The vault, the colony, the hidden messages, they had all been leading to this. They had been lured here, drawn into the heart of the ancient power that had been sealed away for so long, and now, they were standing in the middle of its awakening. Strange hum filled the air, and the creatures' movements became synchronized. They reached out toward Naya and Kiv, their hands flickering with energy. The ground beneath them cracked open further, and a deep, guttural voice boomed from the pit. "You should not have awakened us." The voice was like a force in itself, powerful, commanding, and ancient. It reverberated through Nia's bones, shaking her to her core. She could feel the weight of it, pressing in from all sides. What are you?" Nia managed to whisper, her voice trembling. The creature in front of her cocked its head, its black eyes narrowing. "We are the Keepers," it said, its voice like the rumbling of thunder. "And you are the reason we were sealed away. You have come to claim what you should not." The words struck Nia like a physical blow. She had thought they were exploring a forgotten colony, but in reality they had unearthed something far darker. The Keepers weren't just a force of nature, they were a power, a curse, that had been locked away for a reason. But it was too late to stop it now. The vault had opened, and the creatures that had been contained within it were free. The light grew more intense, and the creatures began to move faster, their energy coalescing into a powerful force. Naya and Kiv had no choice but to run. There was no time for hesitation. They had awakened something they didn't understand, and now they were the prey. But as they turned to flee, Naya couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't running, aware they were running towards something even more dangerous. The force had already begun to spread, and no one would be safe until it had claimed everything in its path. The sound of the Keeper's presence resonated through the very air around them, a deep, unsettling hum that seemed to pulse with each beat of their hearts. The light from the pit flickered violently, as if alive, twisting and swirling with an otherworldly force. Nia's pulse raced as she turned to Kiv, her mind desperately trying to process what was happening. The creatures, these Keepers, were not just beings, they were an ancient, malevolent power that had been sealed away for a reason. "We need to move." Kiv's voice broke through the haze of fear that clouded Nia's mind. He grabbed her arm and pulled her forward, but Naya could barely move. The energy in the vault was thick, heavy, almost suffocating. It felt like the very ground beneath her feet was alive, shifting, twisting as though it wanted to swallow them whole. "We can't run forever," Nia whispered, her voice filled with desperation. "Whatever they are, they're not just going to let us leave." Kiv didn't answer. He just kept pulling her along, his eyes wide with terror. They had no plan, no escape. They were caught in the grip of something ancient, something that had waited for centuries to be unleashed, and now it was free. Nia glanced back over her shoulder, just in time to see the Keepers advance, their movements slow but deliberate. The creatures were no longer just standing, they were approaching, closing in with terrifying purpose. Their black eyes gleamed with something dark and unforgiving. The energy around them seemed to grow stronger, their forms flickering like flames in the wind, shifting and distorting in ways that made Nia's stomach turn. As they ran, the vault's structure continued to collapse. The walls trembled, cracks spreading like veins through the stone, and dust filled the air, choking them. It was as if the entire planet was rejecting the vault's existence, pushing back against the force that had been awakened. Nia could feel the ground shake beneath her feet, the very earth beneath her trembling in fear. The Keepers were close now, too close. "Captain," Kiv's voice was a shout now, and Nia could feel his grip tighten on her arm. "We need to get to the ship now." Nia nodded, her mind racing. The ship was their only hope, but with the vault collapsing around them and the Keepers closing in, getting to it seemed impossible. Still, they had no other choice. The light from the pit behind them flared up, blinding them for a moment. Nia stumbled, her vision swimming. The world around her twisted, everything spinning as the energy from the pit surged, following them. They were being hunted now. They were being drawn towards something. The force wasn't just chasing them, it was leading them somewhere. "We're almost there," Kiv shouted, pointing toward the entrance of the vault. The ship was visible now, just beyond the edge of the ruins, its sleek silver form gleaming in the dim light. It felt like a distant promise, a shred of hope in a world that was rapidly falling apart. But just as they reached the entrance, the ground beneath them cracked open with a deafening roar. Nia gasped as she barely avoided falling into the chasm that had opened up before them. She could feel the heat rising from the crack, the energy pulsing from it like a heartbeat. The Keepers were right behind them. their forms now fully visible, no longer shifting in the light, but solid, terrifying, and powerful. They moved with a fluid grace, their bodies rippling with raw energy. The closest one, the leader perhaps, locked eyes with Naya, and for a moment it felt like the entire universe was collapsing in on her. "We can't outrun them," Kiv cried, his voice frantic. Nia's mind raced. They were trapped. There was no way out. The ship was too far, the keepers too powerful. The walls of the vault had crumbled, and now they were standing on the edge of a chasm, surrounded by creatures that were not of this world. But then Naya saw it at the control panel at the edge of the chasm. It was a familiar shape, the same type of panel they had seen in the vault, but this one was different. It was glowing with the same eerie energy that surrounded the keepers. The symbols on its surface flickered, shifting, and for a moment it felt like the panel was calling to her. Without thinking, Nia bolted toward it, her feet pounding the ground. She didn't know why, but something deep inside her told her it was their only chance. She didn't have time to explain to Kiv. She just ran, her heart pounding in her chest. "Nia, what are you doing?" Kiv screamed, but she didn't answer. She didn't know what she was doing, but she had to try. As Naya reached the panel, she hesitated for just a moment. The energy that pulsed from it was overwhelming. But there was something in the symbols, something that seemed familiar. The symbols on the control panel matched the ones from the vault, and as her fingers brushed against the surface, the panel responded, lighting up with a blinding brilliance. The keepers roared in unison, their voices filling the air with a terrifying sound. The energy around them crackled, and the ground trembled again. Naya could feel the weight of their gaze, the heat of their presence bearing down on her. Kiv's voice was frantic, but there was no time to hesitate. She pressed her hand down on the panel. There was a moment of silence, and then the world seemed to explode. A burst of energy shot up from the panel, sending a shockwave through the air. The ground split open, and the keepers froze, their forms flickering with uncertainty. The light from the pit flared one last time before the energy shifted and spiraled into the control panel. The keepers screamed, their voices echoing through the collapsing vault. It was as if the very energy that had been awakened was now turning against them, spiraling out of control. Naya stumbled back, her heart racing, her body shaking. The world around her seemed to twist and blur. The vault was collapsing, the ground cracking beneath them, but she could feel that something had shifted. The keepers were no longer advancing. They were retreating. Kiv grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the ship. "Let's go," he shouted. Together they ran toward the ship, the once mighty vault now crumbling behind them. The keepers had been thrown back, but for how long? They had no idea, but they had no choice. They had to leave this place, and they had to leave now. The ship was their only hope. And as they reached it, Naya felt a strange sense of relief. But she knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The keepers had been pushed back for now, but the force they had unleashed was far from contained. They had only just begun to understand the danger they were in. As the ship's engines roared to life, the oppressive weight of the vault's collapsing structure seemed to lift, but the tension in the air still clung to Naya and Kiv like a shadow. The vast crumbling ruins of the forgotten colony faded behind them, and the ship soared upwards, cutting through the dense atmosphere of the planet. Yet, even as they left the chaos below, Naya couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't escaped, that they were merely running from something much worse. They sat in the cockpit, silent for a while, each processing the events that had unfolded. In the past few hours, the ship's sleek, metal walls hummed gently around them, the soft lights of the control panel casting an eerie glow on their faces. Kiv's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the controls, his knuckles white from the strain. Nia's gaze was fixed on the horizon, her mind still reeling. "I can't believe this is happening," Kiv said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was low, almost haunted. "We awakened something. Something so powerful that it's not just after us, it's after everything." Naya didn't answer at first. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what he meant. The keepers, the ancient entities they had unleashed, were not just a threat to them. They were a threat to everything in the galaxy, and whatever had been hidden in that vault was a force beyond anything they had ever encountered. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the images of the keepers, their dark eyes, their energy-churning bodies, the way they moved like shadows, as if they were one with the light itself. That thing, that horrible power that had been sealed away, was still out there waiting for them, waiting for something. "What do we do now?" Kiv's question broke through her thoughts, and she turned to look at him. Nia's voice was barely a whisper. "We need to find out what's really going on, and we need to find out how to stop it." They had only just begun to understand the scale of what they had uncovered. The messages they had found, the warnings etched into the walls of the vault. None of it made sense. It was clear that the colony had been trying to keep something contained, but no one had known exactly what. The keepers were just the tip of the iceberg. Suddenly, the ship shuddered, pulling Naya out of her thoughts. Kiv glanced at the readings, his eyes widening. "What is it?" Naya asked, her voice rising with concern. "I don't know. I'm getting strange signals. They're coming from surface." Kiv's fingers flew over the controls, trying to analyze the data. "It's a distress beacon, but the signature is it's not human." Nia's stomach twisted. A distress beacon, coming from the surface, but they had already left the planet. The vault was destroyed, and the keepers were gone, at least for now, or so they thought. "Is it from the colony?" she asked, her heart rate quickening. "No," Kiv replied, his voice shaking. "It's not from the colony. This is something else, something deeper." The realization hit Naya like a bolt of lightning. Whatever had been sealed away was still active, still calling out. The signal was a warning, not for them but for someone else. "We need to go back," Naya said, her voice firm, as if the decision had already been made. "There's more to this than we're seeing. We can't just leave it." Kiv hesitated, his fingers hovering over the controls. "We don't even know what we're dealing with anymore, Captain. We barely made it out of there alive. Going back could be worse than what we've already seen." Naya looked out at the dark expanse of space before them, her mind racing. She knew he was right. They had barely escaped the clutches of the keepers, but there was something in her that refused to turn away now. They had uncovered a mystery that reached far beyond them, and she wasn't going to leave it unsolved. Too many lives were at stake. If they didn't stop whatever was awakening, the entire galaxy could fall. "Listen, Kiv," she said, her voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "We don't have a choice. Whatever's out there, whatever we woke up, it's only going to keep spreading, and if we don't stop it now, there won't be anyone left to stop it later." Kiv exhaled sharply, his shoulders slumping as he slowly turned the ship around. He didn't say anything, but the grim look in his eyes said it all. They were going back, even though neither of them knew exactly what they were walking into. The ship descended once again, cutting through the thin atmosphere of the planet, the ruins of the colony far below. Nia's heart pounded in her chest. As they drew closer to the source of the mysterious signal, the ground seemed to pulse beneath them, as if it, too, was alive. The sense of dread that had been hanging over them since they left grew stronger with every passing moment. They landed on the outskirts of the colony, far from the destroyed vault. This time Naya didn't wait for Kiv to speak. She was already out of the ship, her boots crunching against the dry earth. The air felt heavy, almost thick with a silent presence that made every step feel like an echo. "There's something down there," Kiv muttered from behind her. "Something we missed before." Nia nodded, her eyes scanning the area. They had already seen the remnants of the colony, but now they had to focus on the signal. It was coming from below the surface, somewhere deep within the planet's crust, moved toward a series of caves hidden beneath the ruins, the very ones that had been buried for centuries, forgotten by time. The signal was stronger here, almost as if the planet itself was calling them in. "Stay close," Naya warned, her voice low. As they ventured deeper into the cave system, the air grew colder, the walls slick with moisture. The faint glow from their flashlights flickered against the rock. The deeper they went, the more the walls seemed to hum, the sound vibrating through their bones. And then they found a tan entrance, hidden behind a wall of stone. The signal was coming from within, pulsing with a strange energy that seemed to resonate with the very core of the planet. "This is it," Naya said, her voice tight with anticipation. "Whatever's down there, it's not done yet." They stepped inside, their footsteps echoing in the darkness, and Nia's heart pounded faster. The deeper they went, the stronger the signal became. But now, something was different. They weren't just hearing the signal, they were feeling it. The ground beneath their feet began to shake again, just as it had in the vault. But this time, it was more controlled, more deliberate, and then, they saw it. A massive machine, ancient and covered in strange symbols, sat in the center of the cavern. Its surface shimmered with energy, glowing with an intensity that hurt their eyes. It wasn't just a machine, it was a beacon, a call to something or someone waiting far beyond the stars. Nia's breath caught in her throat. It's not over, it's just begun. And as the machine hummed to life, she realized that the galaxy wasn't just on the brink of destruction, it was already too late to stop it. The machine hummed louder now, its pulsating glow intensifying, casting eerie shadows against the cavern walls. Nia's heartbeat matched the rhythm of the energy it emitted, a steady thump that seemed to reverberate through her chest. She stood, frozen, her breath caught in her throat as the machine stirred to life, its ancient mechanisms creaking and groaning. Awakening after centuries of silence, Kiv's voice broke the stillness, his tone tinged with dread. What have we done? What is that thing? Naya turned to look at him, her mind racing. The cavern felt like it was alive, as though the planet itself had become a part of the machine, its heartbeats synchronizing with theirs. The air was thick with tension, heavy with the weight of their discovery. Whatever had been sealed away here wasn't just a relic, it was a power, an intelligence, far older than anything they had imagined. I don't know, Naya said, her voice low, almost drowned out by the hum. But whatever it is, it's not from our world. It's not just technology, it's alive. The walls seemed to pulse along with the machine, a deep guttural sound that vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. The signal was getting stronger, more insistent, like a call from the very depths of the planet. Nia's gut twisted with the growing realization that they had uncovered something far more dangerous than the Keepers. This machine wasn't just a beacon, it was a door, and if they didn't find a way to close it, whatever was waiting on the other side would be free. Do you think the Keepers were guarding this? Kiv asked, his voice barely audible. Is this what they were trying to contain? Naya didn't answer immediately. The question lingered in the air, unanswered but pressing, like the weight of an impending storm. She glanced at the machine again. The symbols etched into its surface were the same ones they had seen on the vault, on the trees, on the ruins. It was all connected, but how and why had it been hidden so long? The hum of the machine grew louder, vibrating through the cavern, making the very air feel thick with energy. Naya stepped forward, her boots crunching on the loose stones beneath her. She had to understand. She had to figure out how to stop it before it was too late. As she approached the machine, she felt a strange pull, an inexplicable force that seemed to beckon her closer. The symbols on its surface shifted, swirling as if responding to her presence. She reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. The moment she made contact, a jolt of energy surged through her body, and she staggered back, her breath catching in her throat. What the hell was that? Kiv exclaimed, his eyes wide with fear. Naya shook her head, trying to steady herself. The sensation was like nothing she had ever felt, intense, raw, and terrifying. It was as though the machine had recognized her, as though it had chosen her. The connection was deep, more than just physical. It was like a link between her and whatever lay beyond it, whatever is on the other side. It knows we're here, she murmured, her mind spinning, and it wants us to open the door. Kiv's eyes flickered with fear, but Naya could see something else in them, something like understanding. He had always been the more cautious of the two, the one who preferred to follow the rules. But now, in the face of this unimaginable discovery, they were both in the same position, trapped in the unknown, with no way to predict what was coming. Next, I don't think we can stop it, Kiv said softly, his voice tinged with resignation. I think it's already too late. Before Naya could respond, the ground beneath them trembled again, and a series of deep, rumbling noises echoed through the cavern. The light from the machine flickered, casting long, twisted shadows across the walls. The air grew thicker, colder, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. And then, without warning, a bright flash of light erupted from the machine, blinding them both for a moment. When Naya's vision cleared, she saw something emerging from the very core of the machine. It was a shape, something that looked almost human, but not quite. It was tall, its features shadowed and indistinct, like a figure made of pure energy. Its presence was overwhelming, its very existence a violation of everything Naya thought she knew about the universe. The air crackled with tension as the figure stepped forward, its movements fluid, almost graceful. It wasn't human, but it wasn't alien either. It was something beyond comprehension, something ancient and powerful. You shouldn't have come, the figure said, its voice reverberating in Naya's mind, not through her ears. It was a deep, resonant voice, filled with a strange, almost hypnotic power. This place is not for you. Nia's pulse quickened, but she stood her ground. Who are you? She demanded, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. What is this place? The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, it seemed to study her, its gaze piercing, its energy enveloping her in a way that made it hard to breathe. I am the keeper of the gate, it said finally. I have watched over this world for eons, guarding what lies beyond. But now the gate is open, and you have opened it. A chill ran down Nia's spine. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. They hadn't just awakened the Keepers, they had opened the gate to something far worse, something that had been waiting for centuries to be set free. What's behind the gate? Kiv asked, his voice barely a whisper. The figure's gaze turned toward him, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. Beyond the gate lies a force so great, so powerful, that it could unmake everything you know. It is not a thing, not a creature, but an energy of force that predates your existence. Naya felt the weight of its words settle over her, pressing down on her chest. Whatever lay beyond the gate wasn't just a threat to them, it was a threat to the entire galaxy, to every living thing that had ever existed. We have to close it, Naya said, her voice firm, despite the dread coiling in her stomach. We have to find a way to shut the gate before it's too late. The figure's form flickered for a moment, as though it were losing coherence, but it remained, its energy swirling around them. It is already too late, it said. The gate cannot be closed, it has been opened, and nothing can stop what comes next. Nia's heart sank. They had been too late. The force they had unleashed couldn't be contained. All that was left was the destruction that would follow. The ground trembled again, and the machine behind them groaned, its energy growing stronger. The figure began to fade, its form dissolving into the air like smoke. You should have stayed away, it said one last time, its voice echoing in Nia's mind. Now you will witness what happens when the gate is opened. And with that, the figure was gone, leaving only the hum of the machine and the growing sense of impending doom. Naya and Kiv were left standing in the cavern, the weight of their actions hanging over them like a dark cloud. That it was already too late. They had opened the gate, and now they would have to face the consequences. The cavern fell silent after the figure vanished, the hum of the machine the only sound left in the heavy air. Naya stood motionless, her body taut with fear, her mind still reeling from the words of the keeper of the gate. It's already too late. The words echoed in her head, and she could feel the weight of their meaning pressing down on her chest. Kiv stood beside her, his face pale, eyes wide with the same realization. They had opened the gate, and now, there was no turning back, no escape from what they had unleashed. Naya looked around the cavern, her heart pounding in her chest. The machine was still active, its power radiating outward, but she didn't know what to do. They had no answers, no way to stop it. The keeper had made it clear that nothing could be done now. Whatever was coming had already begun. Just stand here, Kiv said, his voice shaking. We have to do something. We can't let it end like this. But Naya didn't have an answer. She had hoped for a solution, for some way to undo the damage they had caused. But the truth was staring her in the face. The power they had awoken was beyond their control, beyond anything they could even comprehend. Whatever lay beyond the gate was coming, and there was no way to stop it. Nia stepped closer to the machine, her fingers brushing against its cold surface again. The symbols pulsed in response, but they no longer seemed as threatening as before. Instead, they were almost welcoming, as though the machine was beckoning her, urging her to understand. She closed her eyes, trying to clear her mind. If there was any hope left, it was buried deep within this strange, ancient technology. She needed to understand it. They needed to know what they were really dealing with, because the alternative was unthinkable. Come on, Naya, Kiv urged, stepping forward as well. We don't have time to waste. We need to get out of here before whatever's on the other side reaches us. Naya shook her head, her gaze still fixed on the machine. If we leave now, Kiv, we'll be running forever. Whatever's coming will find us, and it won't stop until we're all gone. Kiv opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. He looked at Naya, and in that moment, she could see the same realization in his eyes. They had no choice but to confront what they had unleashed. There was no escaping it now. Nia took a deep breath and pressed her hand against the machine once more. This time there was no jolt of energy, no shock to her system. Instead, the surface of the machine seemed to soften under her touch, as though it recognized her, as though it knew she was its last hope. And then, she heard it. A voice, not in her ears but in her mind, clear and resonant, like a deep bell tolling through the darkness. You are the ones who have opened the gate, Nia. Heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if the voice was real or just in her mind, but it didn't matter. She felt the weight of its words. You are the ones who have awakened the force, the voice continued. You are the ones who will decide the fate of your world. What are you talking about? Naya whispered aloud, unsure whether the voice could hear her. We didn't mean to. It is too late for meaning, too late for regrets. The voice paused for a moment, as if considering her words. Nia felt something stir deep within her, something ancient and powerful. You have done what the keepers could not. You have opened the gate, and now, you must face what lies beyond it. Nia's mind raced. Face what lies beyond it. What does that even mean? The voice responded to her unspoken question, as if reading her thoughts. The Force is not a thing. It is not an entity. It is a consciousness, a collective will that exists beyond time, beyond the stars. It is the will of the universe itself. Nia's breath caught in her throat. The will of the universe. Yes, it has always been there, watching, guiding, waiting, and now, it is free. Kiv stepped closer, his voice trembling. What will happen now? What are we supposed to do? There is nothing you can do, the voice replied, and for the first time there was a note of finality in its tone. You have opened the gate, you have brought it here, and now, you will see what happens when the will of the universe is unleashed. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble once again, and the walls of the cavern cracked with an eerie, reverberating groan. Nia's heart raced. She could feel the energy in the air, thick and heavy, almost suffocating. It was as though the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. This is it, Kiv whispered, his face pale as he looked around in fear. This is what we've done, no, Nia said, shaking her head, her voice fierce. This isn't over yet. We're not finished here. The voice echoed again, now distant, as though it was coming from a far-off place. Beyond the reach of the cavern, the force has been set in motion. You cannot stop it now. It will spread, as it was always meant to. The end is inevitable. No, Nia repeated, her voice stronger now. There has to be another way. We can't just let it destroy everything. But the voice was silent. The cavern seemed to grow darker, the energy in the air intensifying, and Nia could feel it. Something was coming, something beyond their understanding, something far greater than them. She didn't know what it was, but she knew one thing for sure. It was no longer a matter of stopping the force. It was about surviving it. Kiv looked at her, eyes filled with uncertainty. What do we do now? Nia took one last long look at the machine, its symbols flickering like stars in the void. She didn't have the answers, and she didn't know how they would face the unimaginable force they had awakened. But she knew one thing. They weren't done yet. They would fight, even if they had to do it with nothing but their wits and willpower. Machine, the gate, the voice, they were all part of something far greater than themselves. But they weren't going down without a fight. We're going to survive this, Nia said, her voice steady, though her heart pounded in her chest. We have to. And as the ground continued to tremble, as the light from the machine grew brighter and the force beyond the gate stirred to life, Nia and Kiv braced themselves for what was to come.